What's going on today, everybody? Well, after trying to get this sled up and running and getting it in tip-top shape, ready for the season that's coming up, I'm going to go ahead and change most of the fluids in it. Now, I already did the coolant, did that before I even made a video of having it. So, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show you how to do a chain case oil change in a Polaris. This is an Assault, but it works for the RMK and pretty much most of the RMK line, as well as most of the Polaris line. I don't have Polaris oil, which is okay. I have some synthetic chain case oil, perfectly fine. And we're gonna go ahead and do a chain case oil change in my sled. Now, we're gonna go ahead and be working on what would be the right side of the sled, the pole starter side on most cases, but on your right hand side, we're gonna be working on that sled. Now, I've got the sled on some cheap Harbor Freight dollies, and it actually is super nice because one-handed, I can move this whole thing around and put it wherever I need to go ahead and move it wherever I need to. So, I'm gonna go ahead and push it all the way to the left side of the shop, and we're gonna go ahead and get into this crankcase, which is located just behind this panel. So here we go. We're at the front of the sled, and we go to the right footwell, and right down in here, you can just barely see this little hole. Now, that's the filler tube, and the drain is just under the sled next to the track. You can see that bolt. Right there is your drain. So we'll go ahead and make sure that the filler, this is a huge thing, make sure your filler comes loose before you go ahead and drain your fluid. That is a huge thing. Now, why is it so important to make sure that your fill tube or your fill hole opens before you drain it? Well, what happens if that's completely seized in there and you can't get the bolt out of the fill, but you go ahead and you drain all the oil out of it? You're never going to be able to get the oil back into it without drilling it out or being able to take that fill tube out. So it is super, super important, not only on sleds or anything, it applies to anything that you're trying to change the oil in. Definitely make sure you can get the fill cap, tube, plug, whatever it is, make sure you can get that off before ever even draining your fluids, whatever, whether it be coolant or oil. I've got my 6mm socket set in there, and we're gonna go ahead and break this thing free. Break it free. Now we'll go ahead and remove it. There we go, we've got it out. There's our plug. So there we go, we've got our plug here, and it seems to have a little bit of shavings on it, so it's probably good that we're gonna go ahead and change this. You can see all the gunk that's built up on it. So we'll go ahead and give that a good clean, maybe change this O-ring out, replace that, but we've got the filler out, so now we can go ahead and drain the rest of our crankcase oil out of it. That one was a little dirty. Definitely glad that I did it because this all came off of the drain plug, as well as these O-rings are toast. That one is done. That one's still pretty okay, but they are flat. So I'm really glad that we did that. and we're gonna go ahead and start to fill this thing back up with some oil first. Install our drain plug, fill it up with oil, and then put our fill plug in. So I finally found a little funnel that will actually work, and I found a chunk of tube, an old piece of tube. I think it's 1/2-inch tube. I don't know the exact dimensions on it, but it's real small. Take your drain plug around or your fill plug around and see which one will fit actually into the hole. If your bottle comes with the little filler neck thing, that is way easier to use than this because I actually will need the funnel. So I managed to jimmy rig something together, got a funnel in there with a piece of tube to actually go inside, and you'll go ahead and fill it up until it starts pouring out of the fill hole. Now, the tube that I have is just about the same size as the hose is the same size as the hole. So it's kind of plugging it. So I'm not going to be able to see that overfilling until I pull the hose actually out of the sled. So another good tip is to know exactly how much you're going to be needing to use and how much you actually have. So this sled takes 9 fluid ounces, a little over 9, I think like 9.1 or 9.2 fluid ounces. This bottle, however, is 12. So I will be needing, what is that, 3/4 of this actual bottle to use in the sled. So I should have a little bit left in here. I might overfill it a little bit, let it drain out onto the floor, into the pan, into the actual oil drain. That's probably a better idea than on the floor. And that way I know that it's going to be where it needs to be full. Now we've got it barely dripping out. We'll go ahead and reinstall our fill plug into this crankcase. Now to go ahead and finish it up, I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of brake cleaner. Make sure to get that oil kind of out of around there. Now hopefully that will take care of the oil, the extra oil that's been dripping, because I can't get a rag to it. Now that we've got everything done, we've got our drain plug in, filled it back up with oil, and struggled on getting our fill plug back in, it's time to go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and check for leaks. So that means I'm gonna start up and run it for a second, let it just idle, and see if it's leaking, and if it is, then I can address it now instead of, oh, I'm out on the hill and now I've got no chain case oil. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna let it idle and double check it for leaks. Now that we've got it cleaned, we should be able to see any leaks. There might still be some residual oil kind of hanging out, so as long as it's not like a big leak, it should be fine. There might be just the residual stuff that's come out of the fill plug and is still trying to drip down. Did try to clean it with some brake cleaner. Don't know how well it did because I can't really get in there and A, clean it very well, or B, spray it very well. So we'll just go ahead and we'll let it run and make sure that everything's operating as it should be. Well, that went better than expected. It actually wasn't too bad of a deal at all. After finding that funnel, it actually made a world of difference. A lot of people complain about trying to get fluid back into the crankcase, and a cheap little funnel and a chunk of hose did wonders for me. If you happen to have the little nozzle on top of your fuel or your oil container, definitely get a little chunk of hose to go with it. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something to get it into the crankcase. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If it helped you, please, please, please leave a big thumbs up. That helps me out. If you found it useful, that'd be great. If you want to leave a comment, please leave a comment below. And as always, please subscribe. It helps me out a ton. Thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.